should we buy something when we could it invent ourselves and do with a lot of time a less working version of it. So we came up with the setup. Ray, next slide, please. Yeah. This is the cast itself. It's actually a piece of hardwood floor from the renovation of the kitchen of my parents. This is famous modeling clay stuff which hardens with heat. These two are interesting. Those are metal alloys. This is wood metal. It's an alloy of lead, bismuth, cadmium and tin, and this is roses metal. It's an alloy, it's basically the same alloy, just that cadmium is replaced by indium. And wood metal has a melting point of 70 degrees Celsius, and roses metal has a melting point of 95 degrees Celsius. I would recommend using roses metal because cadmium is even more toxic than lead. And I would recommend using a well-ventilated area, wearing protection, blah, 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 blah. And don't file it too much because the filings hang around in the air and get into your floor and you get a slow cadmium lead poisoning, which you really don't want. But it works, and yeah, next slide. Some stuff is not on the picture. You need a separating agent so that the two parts of the plaster don't stick together when closing it. Baby powder is working really, really good. And you need the spoon for heating the metal and a candle to heat it. Don't heat it too much because otherwise you will get the toxic fumes. But well above the melting point, otherwise it will harden too fast and you'll have lots of problems with air bubbles in your final key. The process is straightforward. You put plaster in the mold, you put the separating agent, the baby powder on, you press the key in, you close the form with a clamp, you take the key out, you close it again, you pour the molten metal in, and you have something like this. And all these keys are working. We made a few more, but I think those are interesting ones. We have basic pin tumblers. They're working very well. We have dimple keys. They are working good. We have from the Abus X Plus, I think this is also working. I don't know what this one is, but this is an Abloy Classic and this is an Abloy ProTech, which have really small details and are really precise locks, and they work very good. There are problems with the key casting. The keys are quite brittle. They will break if you put them in your pocket. They will break if you use too much force when turning them in the lock. So they are not for regular use, besides they are toxic. The keys don't work when the casted keys don't work when the lock has moving parts in the key, like the Dome X. You could maybe as a thought insert like the small ball from the Dome X and also emulate that function, but it doesn't work straight away. The next problem is that it's hard to cast keys which have cuts or any elements on the side because there the form separates and those details are usually lost because the precision of the form on the side isn't that good than on the flat sides. And an example for that is the BKS Janus, which brings us to the next topic, the BKS Janus lock. Our interest in this lock was sparked because we had it for a short time as the lock at the Munich hackerspace, and by coincidence, shortly after that, we had the opportunity to investigate a quite large locking system based on the Janus, which over 50 locks and a complex key hierarchy. It's an interesting lock. It's basically an extension of the basic pin tumbler. It has up to 20 pins. in comparison to the 5 or 6 pins from a normal pin tumbler, but it only has 3 depths compared to 8 depths on a normal pin tumbler. It results in a huge theoretic key space. Over 3 billion keys, 3 billion locks are possible. The pins are arranged in 4 plus 1 odd job rows around the cylinder. Yeah, and the key is working on both sides. It is basically 2 rods together, and so you can turn the key upward and downward, and it works in both ways. Only the upside is checked. On the bottom side on the lock, only the profile of the key is checked. So we liked this lock, and we took it apart and glued it on a piece of wood. And basically, this is the inner cylinder where the pins go in. This is the outer cylinder in which the inner cylinder rotates if all pins are on the shear line. This is a key, this is a key. Yeah, up to 20 pins, as I already said. 3 depths, there is the 0 depth pin, which only checks if there is no dimple on the key on the spot. In the system we examined, there was exactly 1 of these 0 depth pins for every lock, which made us some problems because we made a cut there and suddenly our keys didn't work at all. And the depth 1 and 2 pins, which check for different depth dimples on the key. So this is the upside of the key and this is the lower side of the key, but only one of the sides is checked when inserting the key into the lock. Yeah, how does master keying work with the BKS Janus? You don't have enough place to make multi-part pins, so they use an interesting concept of positional master keying. So only the different pins and different dimples are on the locks, and if those match, you have a working key for a lock, and you can implement a very nice, very complex key hierarchy with this. But the bigger your system is, the less pins you have in each lock. Okay, this was maybe a bit complex. What I'm talking about is, let's say you have this lock, which checks all the green pins, and you have key 1, which has a depth 1 dimple here, and you have key 2 with a depth 2 dimple here, and obviously the keys work in, both keys work in the lock. An interesting result from this positional master keying is you have a nice intrusion vector for privilege escalation on the key, because if you have 2 keys, you get information which you can use to make keys which open more doors than any of the 2 previous keys you had. Yep. So in this example, we have this first key which opens lock A, and we have the second key which opens lock B. And if we just make a sum of the 2 keys, which has the dimples of key 1 and the dimples of key 2, we can open lock C, which has this code, which neither key 1 nor key 2 could open before. And on the system we examined, this was really interesting. Any 3 keys from the system were enough to generate a master key which could open all locks in the system.
Yeah, and something we should mention, I think, also is if you don't find all the keys you need for the master key, for example, it's like bits, you're missing a few bits, you can guess them. So you know everything except for that one position. Then you just create 3 possible master keys with all 3 depths on this position, and you have the master key again. So even if you miss a few keys, you can escalate the privileges just by guessing. The only thing you need to do is to be able to create keys.
Yeah, and because of the double-sided key, you can even put 2 keys on 1 key, because